The Total War series has been around for 15 years now. I usually try to play the first game of every series just to see what it has become over time. Therefore, here is where Total War all started, with the Sengoku period of Japan. Honestly, it wasn't a bad place to start with, considering how isolated Japan was from the rest of the world at the time. Plus, many clans were vying to become the new shogunate. While it was the start of the Total War series we all know and love, has it stood the test of time? Well, there really is only one way to find out, so let's master the art of Bushido and bring honor to our family name. When you start off Total War, you'll have a bunch of options to choose from. You can do the Grand Campaign, Historic Battles, Custom Battles, and even a Historic Campaign. The Historic Campaign is pretty much a campaign in the style of Age of Empires, which is good if you want to focus solely on the combat. But of course, the main reason I play Total War is for the Grand Campaign. Conquering the whole map as a nation is the reason I love the series. Surprisingly, there's a lot here to choose from regarding the campaign. You can start as early as 1530 or as late as the 1600s. Each campaign features different starting units and provinces, which adds a lot of replay value on multiple playthroughs. Once you pick your victory conditions and clan, it is off to your conquest. One of the first differences you'll realize about the first game compared to the later ones is the campaign map. This is because Creative Assembly was creating a high-risk product at the time, something that hasn't really been done before. Therefore, the campaign map was based off of the board game Risk, while the armies are represented with pieces on the map. This not only features its own aesthetic appeal, but changes the way the game is played. The biggest difference you'll realize is that not every province contains a castle. This means that you'll need to build one if you would like to garrison your troops. As a result, there are a lot less siege battles, as most are just skirmishes on the open field. The map is also a bit clunkier and less intuitive. Armies can only move one province at a time, regardless of how it is made up, and only one building can be built up at a time. The way you earn money is much different than before. No longer do you gain money per turn, but instead per year. This is a huge difference and forces you to wait much longer just to get the amount of money you need to build the next building or train the next unit. And that's really a big problem for me, the pacing. There will be multiple turns where you won't be doing anything. You'll either be waiting for buildings to finish up or troops to be trained, which takes 2 turns regardless if it's a samurai unit or not. Because revolts are much more common due to the fact that loyalty takes forever to build up, your army will most likely stay at the new conquered territories far longer than you have expected. There are a few more elements I would like to talk about, such as intrigue and diplomacy, but we will get on to that in a bit. For now, let's focus on the combat. It's safe to say that almost all Total War games have enjoyable combat one way or another. Heck, even Empire Total War had decent combat even though it was heavily focused on guns. At the time, and even still now, Total War was going for a realistic approach to the battles that featured morale, stamina, weather effects, limited ammo, and many more variables that contributed to the ways battles are played. Considering how unbalanced some of the units are, aka the Shimazu no Dachi Samurai and the Warrior Monks, the game is much more arcadic than its sequels. Positioning and flanking are also not as emphasized as in future Total War games, but are still as effective. Unfortunately, the interface is very unintuitive. Even as someone who has put in hundreds of hours in Total War, it took me a few battles to get used to controlling my units. This is because you need to right click on the unit to pull up a menu to give specific orders. It's very cumbersome and much more convoluted than necessary. There are still hotkeys to use, but they are much different from the future Total War games. Overall though, the battles are still damn enjoyable. It is a much simpler and different flavor of battles compared to the slower and more methodical ones of future games, but it's still fun in its own right. There also aren't any special features such as phalanx or fire arrows, but it's okay. It's very fast paced, arcadic, and you can turn up the battle speed to an incredibly high level. It's honestly a bit refreshing to see and play with these high speed battles. It makes the game stand out a bit more from the rest. If you've watched me for a while now, you'll know that I'll talk about graphics relative to the time period. The environments were very well done for the time. Every province features its own map, making the game feel like a dynamic world every time you take the field. Weather effects not only add to the visual flair, but affect your approach to each battle as well. Now, let's refocus back into the campaign. Diplomacy is very simple and basic. You either are in an alliance with a nation or not. Throughout the game, emissaries will come into your throne room, if you have it enabled, and ask you for an alliance. You can also propose an alliance by having an emissary speak to the daimyo of another clan. There are a few special events in the game that happen over time, one of them being the westernization of Japan. Portugal arrives fairly early and will offer you guns, but you have to convert to Christianity. This is a huge risk since you'll need to convert your population to Christianity using missionaries, or else crazed warrior monks will attack you. While it is a tempting offer, it's better to wait for the Dutch to come later, as they do not require you to change religion. While there are a variety of different agents, we all came here for the master of the shadow arts. And yes, I am talking about ninjas. These guys are cool and useful not only on the battlefield, but for assassination attempts. It's awesome to see your ninjas starting small by killing emissaries, to move up to generals, and even enemy daimyos. There are also geishas involved who are the OP versions of ninjas, but I can never get that far to see them. For some reason, I suck in both Shogun and Shogun 2. While I understand Shogun 2 is difficult by design, Shogun is difficult by bad design. Since there is no way to really measure diplomacy, alliances break way too easily. In this game, I had all the support from the Emperor and half of Japan. All of a sudden, everyone broke alliance with me all at once, and I eventually became overwhelmed. There was no warning of this whatsoever. It broke the entire game completely. Few other odd choices, even at the time, is how your sons and generals do not have a bodyguard unit. So that means you can have a 4-star general, but his main unit will be Yari Yasirigu. The only person that has a unique unit to themselves is the daimyo. In the Gold Edition, there is a campaign that deals with the Mongol invasion of Japan. Anyone that has read history knows that it was a failed attempt for the Mongols, but this campaign makes it seem way too easy for that side. Honestly, I like this campaign. It offers a time period that isn't too often explored in Japan's history, and some unique twists to the formula. To play this campaign, I absolutely recommend for you to play as the Mongols. Since they cannot build up their army in Japan, they must rely on reinforcements from the Great Khan. The more money you loot, the more reinforcements will be sent your way. The only thing I don't like about reinforcements is how they appear in random parts of the map. I had a huge stack on the other side of Japan, but it was eventually destroyed since it was isolated from everything else. The battles in the original campaign were a bit small, but here they are massive, right from the start. The Mongols severely outclassed the Japanese on the battlefield. Seeing these battles really makes you feel as if Japan is helpless as you slaughter their soldiers and generals left and right. This campaign is extremely easy, which is a stark contrast from the original one. No joke, I beat this whole campaign as the Mongols in just one sitting. At the same time though, it was very satisfying when I altered history for the mighty empire. Okay, let me wrap this up as quickly as possible. There's a level editor that you can use to fight custom battles in. It's definitely a nice little feature, but I honestly rarely used it. Thoughts? The music is amazing, as always. The battles are fun, but the campaign is beyond outdated. Some games age well. This, unfortunately, isn't one of them. It isn't the worst aged game that I've played, as it does have its own uniqueness and charm to it. However, I feel like the Total War formula has been improved so much that I can't really see myself coming back to this. Overall, this game gets a slight recommendation for me. To be fair, this isn't a bad game. Just isn't that great, and it's been overshadowed multiple times. Regardless of this, I do appreciate Creative Assembly going out of their way and releasing this and having it supporting higher resolutions. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed this review. There's many more coming in the future. Enjoy the rest of your day, and this is Pow3rh0use signing off.